watching World at War with Dean Ryan, weeknights 10 p.m. Eastern, only on Real Deal Media.
Got stars directing our fate, right to the border, that is. Welcome, everybody, to World at War, Real Deal Media's #1 late-night shadowband show. I am your late-night host here, Dean Ryan, who is coming at you like a bat out of hell on a sweltering summer day still. The last days of summer and the tsunamis that were part of it, well, it's now sweltering to a huge boiling point. And I happen to be that frog that's there for it. So anyways, tonight, the episode is U.S. prepares for war with cartels. I don't know how much simpler it can be because it is about to get real complicated as the kinetic war that was promised and then I had a premonition of many moons ago is now underway on standby, and what a place to be. Yeah, we're going to be getting into it, and our video downloader is down, pun intended there, as we're going to be doing it the old-fashioned way as we peer into the conflict with Mexico now. We're going to see what Sheinbaum, the supposed Mexican president, what she's saying about it, how it's a so-called violation of sovereignty, and we're going to take the U.S. perspective and have a look at that as this is about to heat up. And also a clip that I had totally forgotten about of a U.S. Marine who was speaking out against this well over a year ago and trying to tell us, the public, exactly what this whole thing was about and who's truly giving arms to the cartels. And I totally forgot about it, and we're going to do a little review on that and an update on it as well. So yeah, we're going to be getting into just that, plus some major political news now as the black helicopters and the true cleanup of these cities. uh, 17 cities. Who cannot remember that one? We'll see what that's all about as it's underway. Chicago is supposedly the next in line for their little just a federal colonic. We'll see what that's all about and how that's going. And it is, I mean, history is being made. It is changing fast, isn't it? So we're going to talk about that. Plus, Trump is announcing his huge lawsuit on a certain California governor. Wonder who that could be, past, present, or future. So we'll talk about just who's now under the gun, if you will, for litigation. Plus, the Texas is now the Texas schools. That is, they're now setting the trend and paving the way, and they're bringing back, yes, the Ten Commandments, the whole thing. Yes, both monuments, I guess, is now going to be now official. We'll see what word and what he has to say about it. He, as in Chuck Heston, we'll see what his thoughts are. Plus, the renamings of the departments. What is old is new again, but the media seems to have forgotten that as the Department of War is making a comeback, and I can't wait for that. Florida's cracking down on some things. Chinese researchers are pleading no contest to what? We'll see. And a huge blunder in Real Deal Showbiz as former star of the Superman ABC is now part of ICE, but it's not very nice as his training video got leaked. And for some reason, I'm involved in this story. I'm getting blamed and I'm getting the shade of the public. I don't know how, but maybe because we share a name, we'll find that out. And we're going to end on Real Deal Wildlife as the sharks return to Canada because they're hungry for Canadians. We'll see what that's all about. And I didn't know they had a preference. And what do Canadians taste like is the bigger question. We are broadcasting live now on The Real Dean Ryan over there on Facebook. Hello, everyone, as well as Dean Ryan TV on YouTube. And if you can see me, God, then prayers do work. And also Rumble. And if you can see me too, now I have to add, then prayers do work. So thank you if you can see me. Thank you for being here. Okay, let's get started now with some real deal headlines from around the world and in your neck of the cartel woods, shall we? Well, that destination that's a little up the road from the habitations and the towns we know is now here again. Can you believe it? As now, let's get into some headlines as we now go to, well, FEMA, the very department that is really choosy on who they help and very particular and meticulous too, if we can add. Well, now this is underway as now FEMA is now predicting just by chance that there might be a new Hurricane Katrina event on the horizon. Why would they say such things unless they know something? And what do they know? When do they know it? And who told them? We'll find out. Well, FEMA staff now warns that Trump officials' actions risk a Katrina-level disaster. That sounds like not even a mild threat, but a very hot threat. Well, more than 180 federal emergency management agencies employees sent a letter just today to members of Congress and other officials who've yet to be named but yet are familiar, while arguing that the agency's direction and current leaders' inexperience harms the agency's mission and could result in a disaster on the level of, oh, I don't know, Hurricane Katrina. Yeah, that's exactly. And they know, we know that those levees in 2005 were totally blown up by the Army Corps engineers, and that is the story. We're sticking to it. Well, now the letter that was written in sharp ink, well, it has 3 dozen employees signed their full names. Says that since January, staffers have been operating under leaders over there of the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi L. Noem, who's also the acting FEMA administrator. In addition to her, David Richardson and former leader Cameron Hamilton. Well, they're saying that they and those people I mentioned lack the legal qualifications and authority to manage FEMA's operations. Now, this has eroded and hindered the agency's ability to effectively manage emergencies and choose who they help versus who they don't, and which levees exactly they would like to blow up. Off the record. Well, after Hurricane Katrina, it became one of the worst disasters in the nation's history, if you recall, back in 2005 over there in New Orleans, in part because of the failures of local, state, and federal governments, wink, wink. Well, Congress passed the Post-Katrina Emergency Reform Act, if you don't recall. It was supposed to have given FEMA more power and responsibility, but they've used and misdirected all of that authority that was given to them. Well, the hurricane made landfall in southeast Louisiana back then, if you recall. There were at least 1,800 deaths and more than $100 billion in damage, resulting in legislation allowed FEMA to better prepare communities for and also help them recover disasters. And what a waste of money. I mean, couldn't we have thought of better things and people and hands to give that off to? I often wonder. Well, where I'm getting at now, during Katrina, they had difficulty coordinating and all of the hoopla and all the narratives that was just set for us to just consume. Well, now they're saying that the Trump administration has made accountability reform that is a priority, so tax dollars actually reach the people, and FEMA's not liking it. Now, they're now saying that because of these changes and the lack of leadership or lack thereof altogether, well, it could result in another Katrina disaster that could just be a deadly, deadly ordeal due to poor leadership. I don't know how they would know that and who asked them, to be frank. So, more on that developing story. And we hope there's not another Katrina, but it is hurricane season and there's still time to make a way on that threat they just gave us, veiled or not. Well, now that leads us to another cost not so effective boom that's happening in America. Well, that's now this. Well, everyone is now using AI on so many levels, even to the point that AI robots are now having babies for those who can't. I mean, that's the kind of world we're living in. But let me tell you more about this now, as electricity is now going through the roof just from the air conditioning of the extremely hot heat that's just plagued the United States this summer, in which is probably coming to Australia very next, just to give my heads up. Well, now get this now. AI is booming, but so are household electricity bills from AI. Well, Silicon Valley over there, that seems to be the new DC, that's unofficial. Well, now, it's powerful as it is and is said to be, should be very wary of taking off 67 million Americans. That's right. Recently now, in a regional transmission organization that and manages the biggest electricity grid in the U.S., you might have heard of them, called the PJM Interconnection. Well, they're now warning that covering all or part of the 13 Midwest to even the Mid-Atlantic states, plus, yes, the District of Criminals, they cover it all, and they're a little worried and a little freaked out now, as in all of but 4 states average an annual power bill in the year through May, just recently, that increased faster than the national average, which is an eye-watering. And now, you plug the prices rather than pump prices are igniting a political firestorm, if you can imagine. Well, just recently in New Jersey, the latest flashpoint, utility bills figure prominently in a gubernatorial race that has gained national attention in less than 3 months from the big D-Day itself, election. And at that heart of all of this is the race of the artificial intelligence. And the Chinese said, yes, I know, hold my chopsticks. Well, now, New Jersey residents whose 13.3% bill increase was the 3rd highest in the U.S. can perhaps draw some comfort from knowing that New York is falling and faring much worse. And I think we all can take just a little pride in that, but nonetheless, we don't want to see this upon anybody. Well, their bills surged a whopping 14.4%, and more pertinently, 94% of all increase of all of these states that we're talking about are all due, they're saying, majority of it, to the new AI features, whether it's on a website, whether it's in your person, or whatever the case may be. AI is raising up the financial bills when it comes to electricity, that is. Now, July this year seems to be the biggest assault on the American people. And it's usually not this high, they're saying, but it's only going to get worse as AI seems to bloom and boom, while our checkbooks and our finances seem to, well, falter and just become like a whoopee cushion, they're saying. So that's how that one is now. In this case now, there's a new advancement, not in AI in this case, but with pigs and your lungs. So pig lungs, anyone, we ask? Well, check this story out. This is a new advanced high-tech development, as many researchers, but really doctors who love this, are boasting about it all, as now a pig lung has been transplanted in the first time in all of world history ever. And a lot of people are saying this is unethical. I don't know how they're saying it's unethical, but they're saying that pigs are they're the nearest animals that are like humans. Can you believe that? I do, and that's why probably the Muslims believe it too. But let me tell you a bit more. As now the shocking announcement of this that has now surpassed Dolly, the cloned sheep. Well, now the pig lung has been transplanted into the human for the first time, as now Chinese scientists reported it has successfully, they say, inserted a genetically engineered pig lung into a brain dead 39-year-old male who has now suffered brain hemorrhages for quite some time. Now, in previous experiments, pig hearts, livers, and kidneys have been transplanted into humans in a process known as the xenotransplantation. But the lungs are more delicate, they're saying, and it was feared an animal is not going to save the lungs. But in this case, the Chinese doctor said, yes, it has. Yes, it has. So next time you eat pork rinds, just a reminder, you might be really cutting someone else's life short who can't breathe, because pigs seem to be our friends when it comes to surgeries. Kind of disgusting and a little obscure. And what else are the Chinese doing with pigs and humans? It begs the question. Chimera? Anybody? Well, now that brings us now to the big story in the news of the night. That's going to be World War III. Let's get to it, shall we? World War III. Let's talk about it. Let's get into it now, as this is, we covered this a lot last week. A lot of the news for some people seems to be stale. Unless you start looking at the border, it's anything but. As now the Trump administration is now making major announcements and also making major moves at the same time. Yes, they are, as that U.S. prepares for war with cartels. Our head story here tonight. Let me tell you a bit more about it now, as the Trump administration orders military to prepare strikes plans against Mexican cartels. And, this is one of the reasons I'm telling a lot of the expats who may be in Mexico, prepare yourself. Make sure you have your defense weapons nearby, because this is going to get real dirty. Absolutely. Let's get into it further. Now, the Trump administration has issued a classified directive instructing the DoD, the Department of Defense, to prepare for possible lethal operations inside Mexico, targeting drug cartels, with plans expected at least by mid-September. One like previous covert operations ran by the CIA. Well, now, the U.S. Northern Command, NORTHCOM, and its Special Operations Command, NORTHCOM, are now tasked with leading efforts, including preparing for, quote, targeting packages against cartel leaders and infrastructure. Now, coordinated with the CIA, the FBI, the DHS, and Border Patrol, the strike options reportedly include precision drone strikes, airstrikes, and direct action by elite special operation forces such as Navy SEALs. And you guessed it, yes, the Army Green Berets. Well, the plan was discussed at a July meeting, if you recall, led by the Pentagon official Kobe Jenkins, followed by talks between NORTHCOM Commander General Gregory Galat and Mexico's top defense officials, highlighting the diplomatic sensitivities involved. Well, the White House and top officials, including Secretary of State and Little Secretary, that is Marco Rubio, will have increasingly labeled cartels as terrorist organizations. Yes, well, Nancy Pelosi knows them as the friendlies, and Hillary Clinton knows them as, well, family members. Well, the U.S. intelligence community they're calling the cartels, that is, quote, the most immediate and direct threat to national security, citing fentanyl trafficking and mass migration. It's also worth noting that senior officials have revealed that Trump administration quietly directed the Department of Defense to prepare for possible lethal operations against Mexican drug cartels inside the actual country of Mexico. This is unprecedented to many scholars from so many levels. Well, the highly classified initiative was discussed, as we said, back in July, but it's now ready to go forward. And here's some of the echoes from that meeting, as the 2025 annual threat assessment tells us that the transnational criminal organizations based in Mexico continue to threaten U.S. sovereignty in their territorial integrity through the production and trafficking of fentanyl given to us by the Chicoms and other illicit drugs and the facilitation of unlawful mass migration towards the U.S. southern border. And that is the narrative they're running with. Isn't that something? Well, in addition to that, well, what about Venezuela? Well, don't be faltered, don't be frowning, and turn it upside down. As now Maduro cites Rubio's quote madness is the reason now he's now sending 15,000 troops to the border. Well, Venezuela vowed to reinforce security along its border over there with Colombia as President Donald Trump's administration sends U.S. warships to the southern Caribbean. Well, Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro used his weekly television show to confirm he ordered the deployment of 15,000 troops, well-armed and well-trained and well-behaved men and women to the states of Zulia and Táchira. Well, he also singled out Trump's top diplomatic secretary of all, little Marco Rubio, warning that the U.S. move risked becoming a debacle. And we know about that around here. Well, he said, here's a quote from Maduro. He said, quote, unfortunately, this gentleman with his madness, Rubio, and extremism, Rubio, could lead President Donald Trump to the worst possible scenario in Latin American and the Caribbean history. We will emerge victorious from this situation. I agree. You have to remember, too, why people were against Marco Rubio is he is a neocon. He is a neocon with foreign masters in piles of blackmail. Now, just to reiterate, over the course of the past 2 weeks, at least 3 U.S. warships carrying more than 4,000 sailors and Marines are said to approach the region. We reported on that for you well over a week ago. Trump has rattled Latin America leaders, reportedly ordering the Department of Defense to prepare for potentially military and higher military operations. Venezuela is already in talks with Colombia's defense ministry as the security reinforcement at the border really needs beefing up. And he needs to, quote, go well, he says. Now, in closing last week, the socialist ruler dismissed news of U.S. deployment, but nonetheless called on Venezuelans to unite and join militias if they would. On Monday, he said his people had signed up massively throughout the week, and state television is now reporting and running ads promoting the enlistment drive under the slogan, quote, always ready. I mean, is that really the only slogan they could have got to ignite the base? I wonder. And here is another just turn of events. Well, this is now bringing us to Russia, as World War III tells us, is now, regardless of the peace deal with Russia, the West sanctions only embolden Russia's military-industrial complex. So everyone has a military-industrial complex. So don't feel like it's just us. That helps. Well, now these sanctions have backfired spectacularly. Instead of crippling Russia's and Western restrictions, forced Moscow to be innovative and localize and scale up its defense industry, turning it into a self-sustaining juggernaut. While Russia's push to produce 20 passenger jets annually by 2029 signals a broader shift. Military tech is bleeding into the civilian sectors, creating a dual-use economy that thrives on conflict. Yes, it's hungry for war, and we have plenty to give. Well, NATO's scramble for relevance is now at play, with Europe diverting $391 billion in leftover COVID funds to a militarization and a pledging 5% of GDP to defense, as the UK told us almost 3 years ago now. Now the bloc is admitting whatever it wanted to. Russia is outmaneuvering a lot of what the U.S. is doing. Now there's a hidden cost of war as the war in Ukraine over there, while Ukraine's defense facilities smolder after Russian strikes. The real casualty may be Western economic stability, as inflation, yes, that's, we're paying for. Energy crises, industrial decline, and the ripple effect will soon take place across the world, at least the West. As now a new Cold War playbook is just upon us, as now Russia isn't just fighting Ukraine, it's testing the limits of the Western resolve and its provocations over the years, probing for weakness in supply chains, morale, and political will. They're tired of fighting the limp-wristed attempts of the U.S. in its war with Russia once again. So you can't blame Russia, can you? You can't blame them at all. And finally, here as the World War III is now sharing its enlightenment. Well, sticking with that, Trump's Pentagon quietly blocks Ukraine's missile strikes on Russia to push peace talks. Now, you have to applaud the effort. You're amongst many military hawks and a lot of wolves. Well, the Pentagon is now blocking Ukraine from using U.S. long-range missiles to strike deep inside Russia under Trump's push for peace negotiations campaign. While Trump's policy reverses the Biden approach, restricting strikes while threatening Russia with sanctions to force talks. Only that is the idea of a dead man. Well, Ukraine is compensating long-range drones now, developing new missiles, but analysts warn that this may weaken their negotiation position. Now, Trump's strategy may also aim to conserve U.S. weapon stockpiles for potential conflicts with China, God forbid. The gamble risks either sparking peace talks or emboldening Russia and yodeling, as well as with Europe's role as Putin's response is now viewed as divisive, but also cooperative in the push for peace, which is very deadly if you think about it. That's how that one is. Here's some, going back to the cartels here, I want to share this with you. This is kind of what's being presented to middle and modern America, if you will, over there on the cable news, as Fox News is always pushing for a war. They've never seen a war that they didn't really get their pom-poms out for. But check this now. You're gonna see the Mexican president who the administration claims works for the cartels. Yes. And a lot of her cabinet. So you're going to see that push be made. We'll stop if the propaganda is too oversaturated. We'll try to cut it up appropriately and accordingly. Check this out as we now veer into the war at the border, which is really the war with Mexico. Here we go.
Senator Lily Tellez, a traitor, for coming on Fox Noticias with me a few days ago and saying this. Listen.
The help from the United States to fight the cartels in Mexico is absolutely welcome, and that is how the majority of Mexicans feel. The only ones who don't like that President Trump is sending help and trying to support Mexicans against the cartels are the narco politicians. That includes President Sheinbaum.
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum responding, saying, quote, "It's not a minor issue that a senator gave an interview to a foreign media outlet calling for intervention." Here to discuss is that Mexican Senator Lily Tellez. Senator Tellez, welcome to Fox Noticias. I'm just going to get right to it. Is Mexico a narco state?
Yes, it is. And we all Mexicans know about it. And Mexicans are afraid of the alliance between the Mexican government and the cartels that have infested our nation.
Can you explain this?
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there. Thank you. At least she's telling the truth. This is very key. Okay, Mexico is not necessarily a country, and I talk about this a lot with whether it's Hawaii not being necessarily a state or Israel not necessarily being its own country, rather than just a military-industrial complex cafeteria. And when you start thinking like these ways that I'm presenting to you, then you understand the geopolitical landscape. Now, let's go back to this, because Mexico is definitely a narco state. It's up for grabs, the highest bidder. You see it, you go to Mexico, you're driving there, and you get pulled over by the federales. They're open for bribery. That's how it works. And the same is at stake with the global level here, because China owns the ports. China is making deals with Mexico. Just the idea, okay, if you think about this being more than just about fentanyl, because if it was just about fentanyl and drugs or anything, that could be just dealt with immediately. This has a lot to do with China now making Mexico their proxy state, like they were trying to do with Panama and the Panama Canal. Trump stopped that. This is very much about China, not so much about fentanyl, although fentanyl is a form of soft kill versus hard kill, which is dropping the bomb on the United States. So yes, this is a lot to do with China, all the new deals they're trying to make with the Mexican cartel-ran government. You also have the fact that Mexico is vying to be part of G7. They want to be a big player on the world stage. and they don't care and give a damn what the U.S. says about it because they're now backed by China. This is a big, big deal. And then that gets into California. So California ran by the proxies of, yes, China, and you have an alleged governor there who's gifting California, has been gifting California to China. That's why everybody's leaving California. That's a good thing for them. That means it's a buyer's market for the CCP and all their affiliates to not only start little donut shops all over LA, which is part of the money laundering scam, but also to buy each and every former California's home with cash. Very key. Very key. So I wanted to show that to you. Now, I don't want to watch the whole interview with her. And I'm sure she did well, but to prove and highlight my point even more, and I showed this, I exactly remember April of last year, I showed this, a shocking video to you, and we're going to see it again, of a U.S. Marine claiming the United States was trafficking weapons to Mexican cartels. Yeah, absolutely. And also, you're going to see, he's going to talk about, they arrested him. In fact, here it is. We'll talk about it after, just to reiterate your memory there.
You're a fellow Marine.
Here it is.
I'm really, listen, man. I'm really on orders,
Okay.
and you probably don't believe me, and you probably don't even care, and it's okay. But people are getting hurt, and this ties into a whole bunch of stuff. They've been selling our weapons and our fucking military equipment over in Mexico to the cartels. And I've been able to prove that, and that's why I'm supposed to go back to the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, because there's boats. If you ride around in Chula Vista and go right over there by fucking, what is that called? The industrial plaza, by the Food for Less, and you'll see there's Navy boats that came from the SEAL boat installation that they took out, and they're taking them apart and they're taking them across the border. All of that stuff is going across the border, and I'm not lying to you, man.
Well, Marine, I wish you all the luck. Semper Fi.
As
I'm a former
Okay.
Marine myself.
we need.
There you go. So yeah, he's telling the truth. And now it also ties in to the truck driving industry. Now you might have heard about the story of the Indian guy who just, fraudulently got his CDL truck driving license. This is very key because it's the private trucking industry that is bringing fentanyl, bringing human trafficking, and also bringing Chinese migrants and cartel over the border into middle America, to the suburbs, and to create an entire network from Seattle, Washington, California, all the way to the far east of the United States, and also picking up on those Mayberry cities over there in Idaho, as you might have, as you could tell. But what he's saying is very true. That's why they're trying to rotor-rooter and plunge out the wickedness throughout the industry of the truckers, because they're a huge transportation force in this huge network of the cartels. So this is World War III, part of it, through the proxies now. It's not the World War II where this country versus that one, you see their flag, their uniform, you know exactly who the players are. It's all proxy. And also espionage within this country. You can't forget. So what he's saying right there. So we know for sure, well documented over history, that the Central Intelligence Agency has given and sold arms to cartels. You go back to the Vegas massacre, what the patsy in that case was doing. He was an arms dealer, and they've been doing this for ages, because the cartels do the hit jobs for the politicos out there who want to get rid of an opponent, a whistleblower. They hire the cartels to take them out. Then they just transport them back over the border, so there's no trace. I.e., for example, Seth Rich over there in 2016, during that election period where he had the WikiLeaks and gave them to Julian Assange, who we've yet to hear from on the world stage, but he's coming. He's coming next. That is the most prominent, important voice more than anything of the last 20 years, and he is due to return. So this is a huge development. When you understand the score, the true nature of this war goes well beyond the drugs. So here is finally here. This is now a little piece here from the Oval Office just moments ago. You're going to see Trump and also his cabinet. They're going to discuss the hidden crime stats now from these big blue cities and the true nature of the dangers and violence right here in America. Check this out, and then we'll discuss after. Here it is.
In the process of
Here it is.
uncovering a massive scandal in Washington, D.C. with the doctoring of crime stats. And the Department of Justice, under the Attorney General, is leading the effort to uncover this. But when we ultimately share the results, it will stun you. The extent to which, even though D.C. had the worst crime in America, honestly measured, it dramatically understated how bad it was. There's even accusations that murders and homicides were reported as accidents instead of murders. I mean, this is how severe the manipulation of the crime data has been in the city, and it will all be uncovered and it will all be brought to light. You know, I've had a chance to spend some time, as has everyone here, with the police officers in the city. Members of the public are going up to them and thanking them, just overflowing with gratitude, because for the first time in their lives, they can use the parks, they can walk on the streets. You have people who can walk freely at night without having to worry about being robbed or mugged. They're wearing their watches again. They're wearing jewelry again. They're carrying purses again. People had changed their whole lives in this city for fear of being murdered, mugged, and carjacked. It is a literal statement that President Trump has freed 700,000 people in this city who were living under the rule of criminals and thugs. And the last thing I'll say is that under the efforts of Terry, to my left and many here, what they found also is that the street criminals here in Washington, D.C. were doing business directly with the transnational criminal cartels, the foreign terrorist organizations. So not only was the city being run by these criminal thugs, but they were working with some of the most dangerous terrorist organizations on the planet to traffic weapons and drugs into this city. And we are uncovering every day.
There you go. There you go. There you go. I mean, the stories I was hearing just so long ago, and I've always shared everything that I've experienced and witnessed. You know, you would have tunnels, okay, going from all the way from Mexico underground into the University of Arizona, into some of these classrooms where you have professors who, a lot of them are CCP oriented. A lot of them left, right, before 2020. A lot of them got arrested. But you have a lot of participators in the cartel. You have a lot of surrogates. And so these tunnels go all the way into universities. Big deal. Big deal. Now, what is also used in these tunnels aren't just fentanyl and drugs. These are also the tunnels for the PLA, the People's Liberation Army, to come into this country and then prepare for their greater war with the United States. In addition to, as I shared with you 5 years ago, you have the who's who of the Native American lands of Oklahoma. In this case, a lot of the tribal men in the Navajo nations have sold out their own people, as they now sign treaties as of 5 years ago with the UN to allow the People's Liberation Army, the Chinese military, to set up shop in Native American reservations in the middle of this country. Because the question was always, how do we get to the middle of the United States? You know, Trudeau, the former prime minister over there, allegedly of Canada, often wondered. So they started building the Gordie Howe Bridge that goes right into Michigan. Then you have Governor Dimwit over there, Gretchen Wilson, who seems to be still in place in power, who's going to allow that entrance to happen. So this is for the gusto. This is more than just about fentanyl and human trafficking. This is for the soul of the country, as the CCP are ready to strike, as now they got their grips on Mexico, who is nothing but a proxy for China. How do you like them apples? We're going to take a quick break here and try to reassess what we just consumed there. It is a lot. And there's a bit more, or there's a few more videos we can analyze afterwards. But anyways, we're going to take this quick break. When we get back, we're going to go further into this. I think it's very key and very important. Also, we're going to get to some real deal politics now, as some major headway is being now done and ground being gained with the administration, as they're getting rid of the auto pen pardons, they're saying. We'll see what that's all about, and the reintroduction of the 10 Commandments, and some real deal wildlife you don't want to miss. So you're watching World at War, #1 late night shadow ban show in the world. We'll be back after this quick message. Don't go anywhere. Weird news. Good this now. Now we have to expect pregnant robots. That's right. That's right, ladies. It's not just men can have babies and so can robots too. Yeah, it's just incredible. It's just incredible. But so let me tell you now, as the pregnancy is really now coming into fold with the robot community, as they could give birth now to human children in a revolutionary breakthrough and a real game changer for infertile couples. And they say even two men who happen to be a couple, all alike. They're saying, what a time to be alive. And never my wildest dreams. And why would we? People are now marrying AI robots. And now robots might soon be able to carry babies. Yeah, screaming robot babies. Can't you just imagine being on that plane? Well, now reportedly, China is working on designing a bot with an artificial womb, which will receive nutrients through a hose in an abdomen that will soon be able to carry a fetus for about 10 months before giving birth. That's absolutely right. A pregnancy robot is conceptualized by a very just kinky doctor called Dr. Zhang Queef. Dr. Zhang Queef. Well, the kinky Queef, founder of the Kaiwa technology over there in Gazong, China. Yes, if all goes according to plan, the prototype will make its debut next year. And don't worry, it's cost effective, ladies and gents and other robots. It's only going to cost you $14,000 compared to human surrogate, which is, yes, $100,000 to $200,000. So very cost effective and best in value. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. As the U.S. prepares for war with cartels, welcome back from break. I'm still Dean Ryan, your cruise director, cruising with you to midnight and beyond as we prepare for war. Tonight's show is brought to you by the one, the only Real Deal Media's Night Owls. Yes, our members. We be nothing without them. Become a visionary debonair and become a night owl tonight. All you got to do is go to realdealmedia.tv and help fuel this operation. Yes, you can go there and, realdealmedia.tv. Thank you. And also a big thanks to everybody who has participated in givesendgo.com/realdealgo is the place to go. Yes, to keep these broadcasts going. We are in grave danger per usual because we are not on the algorithm or the administration teat or the cheerleaders. We tell you, we tell you the honest truth, and we call balls and strikes, whether we like it or not, sadly. Well, yes, so just go to givesendgo.com/realdealgo. And this is the last week officially of the Tsunami Summer SALE there. The Tsunami Summer SALE. Yes, you can get wonderful items like the following. Yes, you can. And I think the cartels are buying this too. See, it's very popular with everybody, and that's how we like it. And make sure to get the new Jim Kahuna coffee mug. Don't want to miss it. Okay, let's get back to business here. As it is sweltering hot, and you put some nerves into that, and you got yourself a real hell of a World at War episode, don't you think? Okay, let's now get started here. As here's some things just to finish off our last segment. I'd be remiss if I didn't show you. So this is the announcement now from Pam Bondi, who's got all the receipts, but now she's invoking El Chapo. A personal friend of Sean Friend. Well, let's see what she says now. Here it is. Pam, tell us.
Landmark victory for the Department of Justice, our law enforcement partners, and the United States of America. As you've heard, drug kingpin Ishmael Zambada Garcia, also known as El Mayo, has confessed to a lifetime of crime in service to the Sinaloa cartel, a foreign terrorist organization. Thanks to the relentless work of our prosecutors and our federal agents, El Mayo will spend the rest of his life behind bars. He will die in a U.S. federal prison where he belongs. His guilty plea brings...
Okay, so they're getting people to turn, just as I expected. They're getting people to turn on their own. You've seen this before. We saw this with the intelligence communities right here in the United States as far back as 5 years ago, and it's still underway. Here's some additional footage over there of a Marine Corps amphibious assault over there in Venezuela. This is what's happening right now. As we told you, it's underway, that naval exercise right there in Venezuela. We have our troops there. And that is another war over there in South America, Latin America. Yeah, they're scaling the borders. That's why Maduro has 15,000. Now, what doesn't make sense to me is how Maduro, as we watch this unfold here, he had the documents of who was allowing the invasion into the United States. He's saying it wasn't his gang. He wanted to talk to Trump, but it's so hard to get through to Trump. And he's having to deal with little Marco Rubio, that secretary from hell, the neocon. So there it is. So we are going to see a major war on so many fronts right now. And that's not even to say or to mention, that's not even mentioning today and this week, I should say, the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Iran has now ceased to exist. That is as of 2 days ago. And so we're going to be seeing an escalation in war, not just in Latin America, but also in the Middle East once again, where American presence has never left for how many years now? Almost 40 years. So we are seeing a world war on so many fronts. And China just has to sit back and let us do all the work for them and then hit us when we're weak, sadly. Anyways, there is that one now. We're going to now hop and skip to some real deal politics because there's so much going on. I can't even keep up. Real deal politics. Real deal politics. Let's talk about it now. Here's some just quick breaking news. We have Trump just doubled down and said that auto pen pardons are, quote, worthless. Yeah, they are. I hard to argue that, but they should be voided. And then every last person pardoned should be prosecuted. All those pardons, he said, here's a quote. He's saying all the pardons that he gave to some of very bad people, unpatriotic people, evil people, it looks to me like those pardons are worthless. So we're going to be seeing Adam Schiff. We're going to be seeing Fauci and likes of that elk now come down to the prosecution table, it appears. Now, this is huge. Let me tell you why. And this is because this now null and voids the entire 4 years of the dead man walking Joe Biden. Every executive order under Joe Biden, it will be nullified if they go forward with this, which let me give you the spoiler alert. Yes, they're going to pretty much nullify every executive order of Joe Biden. Now, the next one you're going to see, because all this corners, by the way, Barack Obama, the CIA just poster child over there, and the John Brennan aristocrat. So they're gonna nullify all of and everything of Biden. Then they're going to get to the Obama birth certificate. Because when they get to that and they show the 9 fraudulent forgeries of that birth certificate, which has been proven by the Arpaio Private Investigative Corps from years ago, then we get rid of that 8 years, and that is going to be a huge monster. That is going to be the big one because that gets rid of that rids the Obamacare, that rids so many. You know, you have to peek back into that presidency, particularly the second half of his presidency, which was deadly. So don't forget that. So this is it's setting the precedent, to borrow the phrase. So that's happening. And finally, this is something else we have to share. I think we have it somewhere. Well, now Texas schools are now being instructed to display the 10 Commandments in accordance now officially with Texas law. As John Paxton over there, the attorney general and attorney governor over there, yes, is not backing down and will be defending the virtues and values that this country was built on, end quote. So there are some things to know. Okay, so that brings us now to this. Well, the Department of War is now coming back to a return. A lot of people who don't know about that are shocked to even hear such a thing. Well, you might have heard of the DoD, the Department of Defense. Well, that changed. That changed right around FDR, that time frame when they changed the Department of War to Department of Defense. That way, they could just launch and ignite all new wars at the drop of a hat and say it's because of defense. Just to give you a little history on it, well, now Donald Trump says he could rename Department of Defense to Department of War soon. Yes, rename. Yeah, that's right. As Trump has now indicated as of today that he could move soon to rename the department to just that. Well, Pete Pegasus has been incredible. He says the Department of War, this is Trump's quote, he's saying, yeah, I think we're going to change the name and it's about time so you know the truth. I think we're going to have some information on that maybe soon. Trump argued it was called the Department of War during the U.S. victories in World War I and II. Defense is part of that. I have a feeling we're going to be changing. Everybody likes that. We had an unbelievable history of the, Department of War during the first two world wars, established by George Washington, 1789, for all you history buffs, when it was reorganized by President Harry Truman, who dropped the bomb on Japan, sadly. And so there it is. So that's why they call him the Secretary of War, Pete Pegasus, instead of the Secretary of Defense. So there is a update for you. Now, Florida has some news. They're saying they're beginning to crack down on the messaging. Yes, they're tired of tasting the rainbow. They want something else at play, and you can't blame them for that. And the Irish are still waiting to get their rainbow back to their flag. Well, that's a tall task, but let's find out what it really exactly means here now, as Florida is now cracking down on a rainbow crosswalks as DeSantis enforces safety over political messaging. Yes, the nerve. Well, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis over there orders removal of all rainbow pride crosswalks throughout Florida from public roads, citing safety and proper use of taxpayer funds for political messaging. Now, cities like Miami Beach, Tallahassee, and yes, even Orlando, the swampy goo over there, must comply by early September or face state intervention and, yes, potential funding cuts. Now, the ban bans all surface art, in case you're wondering, on crosswalks carrying social, political, ideological messages, emphasizing roadways must remain distraction-free or face a harsh penalty. Now, local officials and the LGBTQ Plus, which, as we know, is the Communist Storefront, advocates condemn the move. Many of the advocates over there calling the crosswalks symbols of inclusivity, excuse me. And while DeSantis insists public roads should stay neutral, he's not backing down from this. Now, the policy aligns with federal guidelines and reflects a broader debate over politicized infrastructure, with some cities resisting while others comply in a very happy way, to put it lightly. Continuing now, well, that brings us now to this, the Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska that is still sending a lot of reverberations in people's just bodies and movements, and probably the universe too, as it's still making a ripple effect of emotions. Yes, that's very true. Now, the Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska is going to be seen as a historic pivot that redefined global power. Yes, that's absolutely a true feeling I get too. The meeting shook the world. A geopolitical earthquake, some have described it. Even if Putin was using doubles, the double was good. Now, the frozen tundra of Alaska, land of stark beauty, brutal realism, and a lot of loneliness too, became the unlikely stage for the diplomatic confrontation that will echo throughout history. Now, on that very crisp day, as many historians have now illustrated, the President of the United States and the Vladimir Putin, the leader of Russia, they came to an agreement, and that is the most dangerous agreement throughout history, because many people who have vied for it have paid a hefty price, and that is peace. Now, what this means is, as we saw earlier in World War III segment, the U.S. told Ukraine, no, don't fire any U.S. Scud missiles at Russia. We're trying to achieve peace. There's a lot of winners and losers in the world of politics, especially geopolitics, but a lot of people who know a thing or two are saying this was a win-win, as now Donald Trump, love or hate him, Trump achieved what no Western leader has dared since 2014 as he reopened direct dialogue with Russia. Now, in doing so, he shattered the neocon consensus. Yes, that's true. Marco Rubio was not happy and his ears weren't so flappy. Then has dominated the U.S. foreign policy for decades now. The idea that Russia must be isolated, sanctioned, and eventually dismantled, as the Bolsheviks would want, well, it's not going to happen. Now, by meeting Putin, Trump signaled to the world that the U.S. is no longer the global policeman. They're tired of it, and yes, we are. More importantly, he secured an off-ramp for Ukraine, a war that has become endless, a black hole sun for many, especially the American taxpayers and the military's credibility to add. Now, for Vladimir Putin, now the Russian president, he didn't just show up, he performed. Yes, he did. We saw that. Very animated, just a shy away from singing his favorite karaoke song, Blueberry Hill. And I'm very serious on that. While he seemed calm, composed, and diplomatic, Putin presented himself as an adult in the room, a stark contrast to the erratic warmongering leaders of the Western European field, the EU, as you know. Starmer and all the other trannies. Well, he reminded the world that Russia is not just a gas station with nukes, but a military-industrial, technological superpower that has outmaneuvered the West by every turn, and a by far supreme chess player. Now, by engaging in talks now, Putin also exposed the hypocrisy of Western leaders who scream for war criminal at the top of their lungs while arming actual war criminals such as Netanyahu, Zelensky, and yes, even the cartels themselves. Now, the loser of that meeting, as you recall, yes, Zelensky, indeed, and the people that fight under him, sadly, that have to endure more Zelensky, the Mossad puppet. Well, if peace ever comes to Ukraine, it will not be because of Zelensky or the EU for that fact, but it will be because of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin who forced the issue. Now, that's some real deal irony, if you ask me. And that's some real deal politics as well, if you ask me again. Well, I totally agree to that. That was a wonderful take over there at Natural News, and we thank them and applaud them for it, which now brings us to Real Deal International. Shall we get on the Concorde? Let's get at it. Well, speaking of China, as we now get into Real Deal International, what is China doing now? Now, you might have heard me say a few segments ago that a lot of the Chinese professors in our university systems over the course of 5+ years have either been prosecuted or returned to the homeland. Why, you might ask? Well, maybe this might be one of the reasons now, as Chinese researcher pleads no contest to smuggling biological materials into United States labs. Yeah, we've heard about this for quite some time. Well, let me tell you more about it now. As Cheng Xuan, a 28-year-old doctoral student from Wuhan, pleaded no contest to 3 smuggling charges and 1 count of making false statements after attempting to bring undeclared biological materials into the U.S. for quote-unquote research. Get this, at the University of Michigan. Wuhan's shipped plasmids in the petri dishes for cultivating organisms, often hiding them in books or mislabeling them their contents. Well, custom agents intercepted 4 shipments as others were lost. Typical. UPS, anyone? FedEx? Wuhan initially denied knowledge of the shipments and later admitted to sending them. Well, she also deleted data from her electronic devices before arrival in the United States, just by chance. Wuhan's sentencing is now scheduled for September 10th, as she now faces up to 15 years in prison if convicted on all charges, which she then declared, please, I don't mind. It's better than going back to China. Give me the 15 now. Finally, Hans is the 3rd Chinese researcher charged over there in Michigan, another Chinese stronghold and storefront for that fact, for smuggling biological materials. Now, 2 others who go by the names of Yang Qing Zhang and her boyfriend Zhang Long Duck Lu, that's Zhang Long Duck Lu, who, well, is quite exotic in his own right, allegedly attempted to smuggle a Fus serranium graminarium, excuse me, it could give you a stroke sometimes if you don't say them right, a crop-destroying pathogen classified as a potential agro-terrorism threat right here into the United States. So there's a long history of this. We would have never known this was happening until Trump came into office. But if you really go back, this really started happening in the mid-90s, and the Clintons giving our nuke codes to China, and the rest is history. So espionage is no foreign agent around here. But something else is going on. Speaking of foreign agents, what about poisonings? Something to think about as now we go to Real Deal Mystery, because something is happening to Trump. But which Trump is it? We'll find out. Real Deal Mystery. Let's talk about it because I can't take it anymore. Well, now it's unnoticeable to some who don't pay attention, but very noticeable to this effective audience around the world. And what am I talking about is clearly, and now the mainstream, the lamestream urine soaked media is now picking up on it as something is wrong with Donald Trump in his coloring. Well, I'm not even kidding by a long shot. Well, as you can see there, the miscoloring of his hands, it's a tall tale sign, at least to me, that if that's the real Trump, well, he's getting poisoned. Let me tell you a bit more about it now, as this is coming out of people who are noticing things. They've had a look at Trump's hands recently and haven't felt right about it, as it's a clear, significant part of the dorsum of the hand, as it's called. Dorsum of the hand is coated in makeup, presumably to obscure the underlying bruise. I would imagine that could be blue. Such a bruise would most likely be from a blood draw or infusion, and not from, yes, handshakes, as the press secretary has told us. Now, none of this is breaking news to those who paid attention, but it's alarming news. Now, many videos are now being taken down and censored. It's hard to find exactly a close-up of these award-winning hands, but it's chronic venous insufficiency, they're saying. And in documentation, a observer over there on Substack has learned and found out about, it could be connected to congenital heart failure. Yeah, it could be. That would be a great cover story for it. But for those of us who really have good memories, at least on this subject, well, you might recall this one here, as you saw the hands there. Mitch McConnell, who had the blueberry hands, a handler, and was zoinked out of his mind, to say the least. Here is what I'm talking about as we go down memory lane. Look at this. This is not that long ago. There's the blueberry, yes, the blueberry Mitch on his Blueberry Hill, poisoned. Now, look at the Band-Aids there. There seems to be the insert of the RFID chip, as we called it. Yeah, and now you take that into account and add that to this. Now, that's the makeup on. The yellow and all that, that's heavy, heavy makeup. So is it crazy to think that thallium or something of that nature could be used to mind control certain leaders of the free world with all the power? Well, I mean, if Mossad is in the Pentagon with their own department and they have all of their Mossad grubby fingers in our business and control the executive branch, you better believe that would be the organization to do such a thing. A shame. But anyways, no word on what's happened to Mitch McConnell, if he even is still alive here. Sad to say. Well, now that brings us to Real Deal Showbiz. Real Deal Showbiz. Now, this is something interesting, and I have a lot to say about it. Is now there's a lot of now movie stars, and we've seen this in the past. You've seen Steven Seagal try to join the sheriffs and the posse gangs looking for, like Dog the Bounty Hunters. And you've seen it. He's even gone to Russia to try to do that, the same thing over there. Now, the same thing is happening once again. I got to show you this. Is now Dean Cain, the former Superman of ABC television. And what a wonderful show that was. And how great was Terry Hatcher, if we just took a moment to realize that. Well, I'm going to show you a video, but because now he's getting ridiculed for a reason or two because of his struggles, I guess you could say. Now the internet is all up in arms and really having a falafel of a day, as Dean Cain's kryptonite as ex-Superman star is now ridiculed over his ICE training video because he wants to be an ICE. Well, that's right. Dean Cain has been subjected to just that, the internet-wide mockery, after a Fox News segment showed the former Superman star appearing to struggle through an obstacle course at an ICE training facility in Georgia last week. The actor has been widely mocked ever since, and nothing is going to change that. And you have to see it to believe it, because me telling you about it is doing no justice. Here is Superman Dean Cain making his way into ICE, or is he? You be the judge.
And so this time, Dean Cain isn't flying there. He's going through that obstacle course and training to be an honorary ICE agent. He was working hard out there, and this is exactly what those recruits will do as they're picked one by one. And they're at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Brunswick, Georgia. This place is amazing. And so this time, Dean Cain isn't flying there. He's going through that obstacle course and training to be an honorary.
Thank you, Dean Cain. Now, here's something. Just let me put the rumors to rest here. So you have Dean Cain doing this, okay? Now, I just want to say to the viewer out there, I'm not sure who it is, who sent the following. At TheRealDeanRyan, you're a disgrace to humanity and miserable. Now, John Leguizamo, you rock, bro. As John Leguizamo slams former Superman actor Dean Cain, okay? What kind of loser volunteers to be in okay. So just for Paco, in case you're watching, I'm not Dean Cain. I'm not the disgrace to humanity you might think I'm. That is the other guy that you're aiming for. It's not me. So I just want to say on the record for that. Okay, finally here is Real Deal Showbiz. Something that's unusual here is now Snoop Doggy mad. He mad at who? LGBTQ. Say it ain't so. Get out of here. This can't be true. Well, let me tell you a bit more. Is now Snoop Doggy Dogg, who's been very familiar with a lot of social movements in the world and the country particularly, is now making controversial statements about one of them, and that's the LGBTQ representation in film. Yeah, they're everywhere now in film. During a recent podcast interview, he said, quote, "What you see is what you see, and they're putting it everywhere." Yes, they are putting that. Snoop explained that he took his grandson, well, I didn't even know he's a grandfather, to see the 2022 Disney animated film Lightyear, and was surprised that one of the characters has two moms. He said they're like she had a baby with another woman, and he had to explain who it was and felt it was very uncomfortable. He said his grandson was confused about the same-sex couple, and he had to explain and didn't know where to start nor where to finish. And now he's taking a huge criticism for criticizing, having an opinion of his own. But let me just add to that, and thank you, Snoop Dogg, if you're watching too. But no, this is part of, it's part of depopulation. It's part of population control. They're pumping up this everywhere to lower the West, to lower the sperm count, literally, and have us become insolvent and have us become taken over by foreign powers. So yes, it's ideological subversion. Of course they're doing it. At the same time, they're using the LGBTQ plus, that realm, at least under the Biden regime, to meet the world through our embassies and help people in foreign countries, third world, even that, understand that they're not alone. But it's under that guise, under that window, they were doing the trafficking of children, because you can't criticize LGBTQ. It's always the protected class who get away with the most wicked, whether it's the churches, it's the organizations, or even foreign governments who are not allowed to critique. That's where the wicked is. That's where the wickedness is, the malfeasance, and the malicious. So Snoop Doggy Dogg is on par with all of that. Okay, finally here, that now brings us to Real Deal Wildlife. Let's get Real Deal Wildlife. Let's talk about this now, as this is huge. Just following Shark Week. If you didn't watch it, you missed out. Well, it's never too late, especially if you're in Canada now, as sharks are now hungry for Canadians, as now it is creating ripple effects once again, as now the Maine Department of Marine Resources has now been monitoring great white shark activity over there in the Gulf of Maine. At least for the past 5 years, the department has said it intends to use the data to better understand the white shark distribution and what exactly is part of their dietary regimen and what makes them hungry. Well, according to a new report published just a day ago, especially 93 white sharks have now been detected in Maine's waters between the start of monitoring period, usually when it starts, and to the end. Well, 19 unique white sharks were recorded as they're now floating and swimming around 47 different states to start. Well, earlier this month, showed a great white shark lurking some of near Maine's most popular beaches, prompting police to issue warnings in one coastal town where a woman died in a shark attack. Now, in addition to the great white shark, at least 7 other shark species live in Maine's waters. Now, they are basking sharks, and they're blue sharks, tiger sharks, unknown sharks, and ghost sharks, common thresher sharks, and the short fin mako shark, and yes, the spiny dogfish shark. And I think that covers them. No word on the construction shark, the Indian shark, or the biker shark. Well, many of these sharks pose as very minimal threat to humans, and some are said to be harmless. But I'll take your word for it. Maine has confirmed only 2 unprovoked shark attacks since 1837. Now, in addition to that, many Canadians are now preparing for all those sharks and more, as now it's said to be that it's been reported that now the sharks are heading to Nova Scotia. The number of white sharks detected off Halifax, Nova Scotia, increased about 2.5 times from just 5 years ago, according to a paper published in May from the Marine Ecology Progress Series, which if you haven't seen the latest issue, you're really missing out. I highly, highly recommend. So there is now a huge warning given to the Canadians of that region to prepare for feeding time of the sharks, and beware, don't go swimming. And if you do, don't wear anything that would make you look like a seal, those suits. So be very careful if you are in Canada. Yes, that's true. Now that brings us to final thoughts here. Mahi or squid, whatever you want. Well, it is final thoughts now as we end tonight's U.S. prepares for war with cartels. We're about to see a huge transition, not just in wartime industries, as now we're aiming and gearing towards the South and the Latin American countries. We're about to see some huge revelations of people who are tied to the cartels. That's going to be huge politicians. Whether it's Pelosi, whether it's Republicans like Darrell Issa over there in California, who's been renowned for gun running, which killed Sonny Bono, who knew about it in the mid-90s. He was going to speak out against it as he was a newly elected Republican congressman in 1994. And then all of a sudden got in a skiing accident. Isn't that something? This is the oldest trick. Then that takes you to the Eric Holder's, former Attorney General of the Obama administration, and all of their gun running during those 8 years. This is the key. I cannot express it enough. This is so key to the story, to the puzzle. And a lot of heads are going to roll from both sides of the aisle, to professors, universities, businessmen. This is it. They're all linked to the cartels. So this war is against the people who try to throw this country underneath the bus and sell us out, espionage, treason, in addition to majority of Latin America and now Mexico becoming the proxy state of China. And that is a dangerous proposition for you and I and the world, for that fact is now China not only is positioning itself for that, but also to be the only handler and owner and founder of the new AI they want to control the world with. And that's my final thought. Okay, I have to run out of here now. Some quick up notes here. Now, first of all, coming this weekend, you're going to see the remixed live in concert with the Attitudes and myself, Dean Ryan, premieres Saturday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. Mark your calendars. Remixed, remastered, and also re-visualized as well. You don't want to miss that. It was my first time playing any of that, and I'll talk more about that as we get close. And mark your calendars too, because these guys are really at each other's throats. The 9/11 debate, it's going to be next week. Yeah, September 6th, live, 9/11 debate, Jim Fetzer versus Richard Gage. Were their planes used? What kind of explosives were used or not? You don't want to miss that. And also next week, we will have Richard Gage on by himself, and me and you, all of us together, as well as Jim. Each candidate will make their own presentation of what they believe happened that day. So you don't want to miss that. Getting the word out now. Okay. So there you have it. Okay. For Jim Fetzer, who will be here tomorrow night. And for the rest of us here at Real Deal Media, I'm Dean Ryan saying thank you for sharing a bit of your night. All of us here watching World at War, because these are critical times. And meanwhile, I'll be back tomorrow. And always remember during these times to stay tuned and stay awake. Try to cast no shadow too. Good night, everybody.